Bear down, Chicago Bears. What a rough couple of days it's been. I couldn't get my camera to work. I couldn't get all kinds of different things going on. So thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate each and every one of you. So we've got some weird things happening right now, and it's a little bit one way, a little bit the other way. Drew Rosenhaus is the big story right now. Drew Rosenhaus has put out an advertisement basically that what he would like to do is to get Connor Williams and Emmanuel Ogbah on the same team. And you know what team needs them the most? The Chicago Bears. Connor Williams is now, by the way, cleared for practice, and he is cleared to play. So Connor Williams watch is about to heat up because Drew Rosenhaus said this. He says that he will be ready for training camp after tearing his ACL in week 11 last year. He added a deal with the Dolphins is not likely. He's looking to play center, and he does not want to play guard like he played for the Cowboys. The team with the biggest need at center, of course, the Chicago Bears. The team with the biggest need for a defensive tackle or defensive end game changer is the Chicago Bears. So it fits perfectly. The question right now is going to be financing and what is available, and can the Bears make some kind of move like this? Williams was Pro Football Focus's highest rated center through much of last season, but finished number 2 behind Frank Ragnow following a tough season-ending ACL suffered in December. However, Williams appears to be among the players who can make quick recoveries from ACL injuries, as Rosenhaus claims he is going to be healthy enough to go to a training camp. Let me go on the record and say Connor has had a remarkable recovery, nothing short of miraculous, really good start to the season, said Drew Rosenhaus. There's a lot of teams interested in him, but I'm just delighted for Connor. I did not anticipate him going to training camp with the team and felt it might be something during the season before he played, but now he's done an awesome job, and we're going to see Connor Williams might show up at somebody's training camp. The assumption by many has been that Williams would return to Miami, but Rosenhaus pointed out that is very unlikely at this point. On behalf of Connor, I'd like to, I'm sure he'd be open to it, but I wouldn't think that it's likely that he would be returning to the Dolphins. I certainly wouldn't rule anything out, but the Dolphins did find a fine center in Aaron Brewer from the Titans and made a big investment. Rosenhaus also said Williams would be playing center wherever he signs. This is an issue because Williams was a guard before converting. The Bears situation with $20 million in cap space is not so much a monetary issue, but whether they might want their extra money for a veteran edge rusher, which brings up Emmanuel Ogbah. They signed former Rams center Coleman Shelton and Ryan Bates. However, I'm going to get to that in just a few moments. The Bears have an issue at right guard where Bates played most of the time in Buffalo. Right guard Nate Davis experienced a rough 2023 season due to nagging injuries and a loss of his mother. He didn't get to the field during the OTAs and only made a few plays for mandatory minicamp. So this does not break out very well for Nate Davis. However, Nate Davis is probably stuck with the Bears because his dead cap space is still $11 million, which means that the team would only save $600,000. You know what I mean? So, Crimson is asking, would you rather have Connor or Yannick? I would rather go with what we have on the defensive line. I made that known. I told you guys, DeMarcus Walker. I like DeMarcus Walker. I don't dislike him at all, but I do think that protecting Caleb is the goal this year. And I would, if it were my choice between the two, Connor Williams, I would take over him. And I'll tell you why in just a second. However, I would, you can make an argument against it, and I don't have a defense. It would just be my preference. But cutting Davis is not an option. Now, here's the other part. He also talked about Emmanuel Ogbah and that the defensive end has significant interest from multiple teams. He's looking at getting back into a 4-3 scheme instead of a 3-4. Oh, you don't say? And that's the Bears' bread and butter. The 6'4", 275-pound Ogba is more the size of a defensive end in a scheme like Matt Eberflus uses for the Chicago Bears. At least he's more similar to the prototype than the 242-pound Yannick Ngakoue was last year. He also played 3-technique tackle, which is an added plus in the Bears system. Ogba was actually used at end and nose tackle with the Dolphins in the past. He had 42.5 career sacks in 8 seasons for the Browns, Chiefs, and Dolphins, and was in Kansas City when Bears GM Ryan Poles was there, but left after one season shortened by injury. It was the season of their first Super Bowl win, and he had 5.5 sacks before a season-ending injury limited him to 10 games. So this is a Super Bowl winner that we're bringing in, potentially. So Ogba had 5.5 sacks last season to go with 20 tackles, 3 for loss. Now, problem, of course, which was the problem originally that I said, there's not a lot of money, but there's 21 million total. That's what we're talking about right now. According to the analysis, by the time we get to training camp, by the time we get to where we can make some moves like this, there's going to be, so the cap space is going to show us right here after the top 51, 21,674,000. Now, here's the problem. Problem is you still have to sign 2 rookies. Once you sign those 2 rookies, that's going to cut into this considerably. So you're going to have to get real creative if you're going to make any kind of move, because the next move is, well, what are you going to replace it with? Well, if you cut Nate Davis, you're not doing yourself any favor. Anybody on this, and by the way, at this point, if you were to make an even up swap trade, which would potentially be possible, then you could swap out DeMarcus Walker. Here's the problem. DeMarcus Walker, $9 million against the salary cap. So I would say if you've got a hit here on Nate Davis, you've got the same thing with DeMarcus Walker, because they have too much cap space. At no point do you have anybody out here that you can just go for that is going to allow you that flexibility. So this is a complicated process. Andrew Billings maybe, but that doesn't fix your defensive line. That makes your defensive line weaker. Larry Borum, well, you could go with Larry Borum, but that only frees up a little over $3 million, 3.1 million to be exact, and you have no money to take into the season. So this is going to be very, very interesting in what kind of quote unquote swapping you're going to do. Also, it is possible based on your potentials here that the one guy that you don't want to get rid of that's in your backfield is going to be Travis Homer. But let's face it, if Roschon Johnson had some ability to play special teams or something like that, just to see the field a little bit more, then you could free up another $2 million with Travis Homer. So there are some pieces that you can make a move. You could make some kind of move here. It's possible, and you don't need Kari Blasingame at all at this point, and that frees up another 1.6 million. There are going to be some difficult cuts that you're going to have to make with this team, but if you're going to make these cuts, why not bring in arguably the number 1 center before he got injured, but the number 1 or 2 center in the league to shore up your position, which, by the way, remember this: Coleman Shelton, natural guard; Ryan Bates, natural guard. Now, take that in with the what is becoming, and I disagree with this, but this is a common sentiment right now, the failed experiment of Nate Davis. You're giving him a lot of money to not perform. Now, that brings up the very good question here. Can this deal happen? So let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think that Connor Williams and Emmanuel Ogbah would be good additions to the Chicago Bears? You've got the number 2 center in the league, and you've got a let's just say a very, very good defensive end that fits the prototype of what the Chicago Bears are looking for. But in the event that you're going to do that, you're not shoring up your team. You're not making you might be making your team better man to man, but you're not making your team better in depth, because you would have to get rid of a defensive end in order to make this move, and you would have to get rid of one of your linemen in order to make this move. So you're just swapping out a couple of better players, and that does make your team better. But what if one of them what if they get injured? So certainly a question that we're all going to be asking over the next couple days. Also, in the news, the Bears have now made a breakthrough, allegedly, with the city of Arlington Heights for a move to Arlington Heights. It looks like very rapidly the thirst for a downtown stadium in the city of Chicago has evaporated. J.B. Pritzker, the governor, says that he would not be interested in any public money. So the Chicago Bears really do have limited options if they want to do something big. and move to Arlington Heights, of course, seems like the obvious move at this point. Chicago Bears have made it seem like for months they were bound and determined to build a new lakefront stadium in south of Soldier Field. Team president Kevin Warren stated his grand vision was to have a state-of-the-art facility along that Chicago skyline for primetime games. Renderings for the idea were certainly intriguing. However, many weren't ready to buy it. They felt it was carefully hatched ploy by the organization to get better concessions from Arlington Heights over the property taxes for their new plot of land at Arlington Heights. Warren insisted that this was not the case. The team was solely focused on a Chicago solution. There's just one problem. J.B. Pritzker and the state government haven't considered any public money. It isn't that they're being stubborn, and it's that they aren't willing to negotiate at all. Warren stated he doesn't feel bothered by this roadblock. The process has only started. Yet they say actions speak louder than words. According to Mark Carman of CHGO, it appears the Bears may have shifted their plans back to Arlington Heights. There's a source that says the Bears have made progress in their discussion with Arlington Heights and the school district board for their stadium deal. The belief is that Kevin Warren's timeline to get a deal done remains incredibly aggressive. Warren said that he would like to start building the stadium by 2025, which means it would be open in 2028. Based on the reception he's gotten from state politicians, he may have realized it would take too long to make any headway in a downtown facility. Now, this is very good. This is important because what we're seeing right now is his ability to adapt on the fly. And look, if you can't get something in the downtown area, and the downtown area is not willing to compromise, whether it be friends of the parks or whatever you call those people, the friends of the lakefront, whatever, they're not willing to budge. The governor's not willing to budge. The mayor's willing to budge, but he doesn't have the money to do anything with it. It requires it's going to require some state financing, and they're not willing to do that. And the Bears have already bought 326 acres in Arlington Heights. The Bears own the property. So this is going to be something that is going to be very interesting. Now, the problem is, of course, you would still want, if you wanted the type of stadium that you're looking for, how much would it cost? You know what I mean? So we could be in trouble in this regard, but they already stated that they could secure around $2.8 billion between their private coffers and help from the NFL. The problem was the $900 million in public money for infrastructure. Going with Arlington Heights would ease that burden considerably and also dodge the advocacy groups trying to protect public land on the lakefront. It might not fit the glitzy vision Warren's had in mind, but it is by far the more viable route as things stand. The Chicago Bears will likely reach a decision by the end of this season. So unless there's a big change, and I don't think that there will be, unless there's a big change, and by the way, they don't have the money. The state of Illinois is basically broke. So there's no circumstance, I think, in which they're going to change their minds. And it's going to be a shame. It would be a shame for the city of Chicago to lose its own team, being the second city, being what it is. But, at the end of the day, I think this is the option, and this is probably where things end up going. And this is what it's looking like. This is the idea. And this is a rough draft, by the way, of any kind of stadium concept and idea that they have in mind to throw up the stadium district, throw up a mixed use district. And to be fair, like, this is a really, on the surface, a nice looking sort of design. We don't know what the building looks like. We don't know, a lot of the particulars. Like, are they going to take the same design that they just did and try to modify it to be part of this region or area? Because, if you look at it, if you just kind of consider, remember there's an open end to the stadium in downtown. Well, this one looks like it would accommodate an open-ended portion as well, showing a waterfront view going into that mixed use district, as opposed to say, whatever we had now with a view of the city. So it just changes the view, I think. And I mean, this might even be for the best for the team. You never know. It's not best for the city of Chicago by any means. It's not best by any means. But, here we are with this being what appears to be the option. And it looks like this is going to be the thing. But let's move on now and go to the 5 Bears not named Caleb Williams, who are going to determine the playoff fate for the 2024 Chicago Bears, with number 1 being Gervon Dexter. And we're going to start with the most obvious choice here. Dexter got off to a slow start last season, but he started to find something during the back half of the season. Once Montez Sweat was in place, the defense started to pick it up. He notched 4 sacks and 18 pressures in the final 7 games. He recorded just 11 pressures in the first 10 games. Now, imagine this. In the first 10 games, he had 11 pressures and no sacks. Once Montez Sweat was here, he had 4 sacks and 18 pressures. Got a lot better. The Bears did little to address their defensive line needs in the offseason. They watched defensive tackle Justin Jones leave and have so far been in contact with 4th-round pick Austin Booker and free agent signee Jacob Martin as the only additions. With Jones gone, the Bears plan to rely on Dexter to fill the 3 technique spot and will need him to generate constant disruption on the interior to make life a little easier for Montez Sweat. And look, if he plays the part, and he is the part, he's what we hope that he's going to be, this is going to be a fantastic change in the dynamic of this team, if he really can do that. Eric Washington said this: I'm going to tell you the biggest thing is just how assertive he is. You can tell there's a growing confidence. He's been assertive. He believes that he belongs in the lineup, and he believes that he can be a major factor. So the next person up on this list, Braxton Jones. Braxton Jones could have tried to upgrade. The Bears could have tried to upgrade it at left tackle this offseason, but they gave 1 more year with Braxton Jones. After an expected rocky rookie season, Jones took a noticeable leap in year 2. In 421 pass blocking snaps last season, Jones allowed just 2 sacks and 32 pressures. Those numbers were down from the 7 sacks and 40 pressures he allowed in 2022. So despite that we don't like him so much, he's vastly improved from 7 sacks down to 2 sacks, and from 40 pressures down to 32 pressures. Now, if he can just continue to make a little bit of progress here, especially in the pressures, this would be a big upgrade on this offensive line. Those 32 pressures ranked 40th among all tackles. He's got to get that under control. And remember, some of this problem, it has to go back. I know some of you don't like this, but we have to say it. Some of that problem was Justin Fields. So if we can get a little bit better out of Braxton Jones and a little bit better from the quarterback position, not in terms of overall play, but just in releasing the ball quicker. If we can do that, then this changes dramatically. The Bears need Jones to take a step forward in year 3, and hopefully that's going to happen. The next guy up who's going to have a big season, who I think is going to have just a phenomenal season, is Tyrique Stevenson. I think we're in lockdown mode at this point. I think that between Tyrique Stevenson and Jalen Johnson, the Bears are lockdown corners. Washington said that he believes that the Bears have the best back 7 in the NFL. For that to be true, Tyrique Stevenson is going to have to make a year 2. Illinois Jones says that he didn't see any progress. Well, then you got to do the math, and if you got to do the math, you got to say what's the final numbers. And the math says that he's better, so you have to go with it. And by the way, he was injured in the year 1 too. So 2023 2nd-round pick took his lumps last season. However, here's the thing: he gave up the most touchdowns, the 2nd most catches, and the 3rd most yards last season. But he played better down the stretch. He gave up 109 yards in the season finale against Green Bay when Jalen Johnson was sidelined with an injury. But Stevenson was targeted 110 times. If the Bears defense is going to become elite, he's going to have to make that 2nd season leap and get a lot better. He's going to have to do something more. And if he does, if Tyrique Stevenson continues to build on what we've had before, which, again, second half of the season, this team looked a whole lot better. If he continues and he makes that leap, then we now have an elite squad at corner. The next guy up that's going to have to make that move, is Ryan Bates. The Bears have some question marks on the interior of the offensive line, with right guard Nate Davis only participating sparingly, and Tevin Jenkins' future past 2024 unclear. And of course, Tevin Jenkins is also quite injured. So Eberflus said he expects Davis to be the starter at right guard, but it will be a competition in training camp. I really don't know. We'll see how it goes. I'm just thinking through my head a bunch of multiple combinations. I really don't know exactly. Sure, we had Bates there. He's played there. Shelton has played at center, of course. Davis has played there. Tevin Jenks has been on the other side. Matt Pryor has been in and been out. The versatility has been certainly helpful. Ryan did a really good job of having those pieces in there. So we don't like last year or prior years, a guy down like, oh, what are we going to do? At least we have that flexibility at the offensive line position. Jenkins will be the starting left guard, but he has struggled to stay healthy. He played in just 12 games last season after playing just 11 games in 2022. The Bears acquired Bates this offseason, hoping he would be their starting center. However, general manager Ryan Poles also signed Coleman Shelton to give Eberflus and offensive line coach Chris Morgan flexibility. Bates can play both center and guard. His versatility will be a key this season, especially if Davis or Jenkins misses time. And we have to at least think that. And by the way, Crimson says, we got to stop shuffling the offensive line. We don't have a choice. If Tevin Jenkins is always injured, Nate Davis is injured or underperforming, what are you going to do? You're going to have to bring other people in. You got to give people a shot. You got to send messages. During the 2022 season, Bates last as a starter, he gave up 28 pressures and 1 sack and 615 blocking snaps between right guard and center. The Bears have 18 different offensive line combinations over the past 2 seasons. So once we settle on this, then that'll be it. But they're going to have to look, there's going to be a competition. Doesn't matter what happens in practice. Doesn't matter what happens in preseason. What matters is when we get to the season, what does it look like? Now, remember, there's still time. You bring in Connor Williams, problem is solved. You've completely solved at least your center position if his ACL holds up. So you could have solved that problem. And then you've got Coleman Shelton, natural guard, Ryan Bates, natural guard, and then you've got Tevin Jenkins constantly injured, and you've got Nate Davis underperforming. Now you've got an improved across-the-board offensive line in theory. In practice, that remains to be seen, but at least the Bears are doing something to make this thing work a little bit better. You can't get rid of Nate Davis, too much money. Tevin Jenkins, final year of the contract, so we'll see. The next guy is DeAndre Swift. He's the most underrated move the Bears made this offseason. After going from a running back by committee approach, the Bears signed Swift to a 3-year deal, $24 million total. He's a do-it-all back who's off of a 1,000-yard season. He also had quite a few catches. He had 50 catches last year. During OTAs and mandatory minicamp, the Bears utilized Swift quite a bit in the passing game. Williams found him on arrow routes, swing screens, and flat routes early and often. His versatility should allow the Bears to keep defenses on their back foot. He should also face plenty of light boxes this season, with the Bears expected to operate out of 3 wide receiver sets quite often. All this should make life easier for Williams, especially early on as he looks to find his footing in the NFL. The Bears' passing attack has grabbed all the headlines this offseason, but Williams and company will need a competent ground attack led by the versatile Swift to reach their ceiling this fall. And then another guy who just got nominated to the All-Breakout team is Darnell Wright. Chicago Bears at NFL.com released the 2024 NFL All-Breakout team, offense specific, and Wright made this list as he will be a key rookie. The Bears hopes to make the playoffs in Caleb Williams' debut season hinges on the performance of an offensive line anchored by his rugged right tackle with a nasty disposition. As a rookie in 2023, Wright delivered a series of eye-opening performances. With the spotlight on Williams and company in 2024, Wright should catch even more attention. He's a bully on the edge with long arms and quick feet, possessing the tools and talent to play at a Pro Bowl level as a sophomore. Wright was also named to the all-rookie team after the 2023 season. So it looks like Darnell Wright is going to look the part and might be a very nice pickup after all by the Chicago Bears, and especially if he gets that second season sort of rub off of that. Now, let's take a second and talk about John Jerkovich. He's been on the Chicago Bears podcast. It was his opinion that everything that I'm saying about Connor Williams and Emmanuel Ogbah will never happen, and that the Chicago Bears are stuck, that they are stuck with Nate Davis. They are stuck with everybody that they've got, that at very best, they're going to add a defensive end, most likely Yannick Ngakoue, who's still practicing in the team facilities to get ready for the season, despite having not been signed. Now, A lot of what he said makes perfect sense. You look at these things and you're like, well, anytime somebody says something that you can agree with because it makes sense, then you're like, yeah, I guess, you're right. Here's the thing. He doesn't know what this team is going to do. He is a long-time player. He played a lot of years in the league. But if you listen to him, you're going to hear him say, there's no chance Connor Williams comes. There's no chance Emmanuel Ogbah comes. That whoever we have right now, that's who the Bears are stuck with. And that was the way that he said it. So shout out to that asshole. Anyway, moving on here. Caleb Williams. ESPN has dropped some new details on Caleb Williams, and it says, nobody would be surprised if the number one pick struggles through the opening part of the season. This is a lot for a young quarterback to handle. However, it appears there was nothing to worry about. There were a few mistakes here and there, but according to Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, Williams got away with a lot more than everybody expected. Despite taking plenty of risks, several of his throws still connected. It demonstrated just how impressive his arm talent and accuracy really is in OTAs and minicamp. He's already, according to this, for those who remember, this was a persistent talking point about Justin Fields. While his arm talent would flash from time to time, he also had a bad habit of throwing interceptions. Keep in mind that a lot of that came against the Bears' second team defense in practice. People trying to shrug it off at the time, believing it was part of the learning process. In hindsight, it may have been an early red flag. However, Williams has not fallen into that same trap despite playing against the first team. Day by day, it becomes clearer why the Bears zeroed in on him. His talent was obvious, but his ability to learn quickly is what stands out the most. Even when he does make a mistake, he learns why it happened and isn't prone to making it again. The fact the number one defense has actively tried everything to counter him from the start, and it hasn't resulted in sheer domination, is telling about Caleb Williams. His self-confidence and leadership ability are already having a big impact on the locker room. So, it looks like Caleb Williams is certainly looking the part as the number one guy on the Chicago Bears. So with that being the case, let's wrap this up. So we've got some players that we're looking for, that we want to see some big moves out of this year. We've got, oh my God, my brain just spaced. We got Gervon Dexter. We've got DeAndre Swift, Tyreek Stevenson, Ryan Bates. We've got Braxton Jones. We need all these guys to step up. We need Jaquan Brisker to continue to improve. We need Caleb Williams to look the part and to be the part. We need Rome Odunze to be that guy that we're looking him to be. We're looking for Cole Kmet to make that next step up. We're looking for all these pieces to fall into place. Settle on your offensive line. Have it ready to go. And maybe, just maybe, something positive is going to happen. Illinois Jones, who, by the way, a little while ago said that Braxton played 17 games and only 11 in 2023. Again, the stats, I don't know what the stats look like. I might be defending the wrong thing. I'm going to go look at his stats in 2022 and then in 2023, and I'm going to see whether he ranked 40th, which he ranked 40th in 2023. So if he ranked 40th again, there was no improvement. But if he ranked like 60th, or something like that, and even in lesser games, he had a better ratio than, and by the way, when you consider it, and I can already do the math in my head, and I can say that if he gave up 7 sacks and 40 pressures, but he only gave up 2 in 11 games, that means that if he had double those number of games, that would still only be 4. Then it would be the question of the pressures and stuff like that. And again, I look, a lot of this, I don't mean to dump on him. It's just an easy target at this point. But a lot of this problem with this offensive line is Justin Fields processing the game at a very, very slow rate. So, it can't all hang on, why can't these guys just continue to hold these players down forever? You're playing professional against professional. So I'm going to look at it. I'll let you know if I see something that hangs out or stands out. I'll be looking at Braxton Jones. But thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate each and every one of you working on the new studio, trying to get everything up here and make it purtier, if you will. So anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. Bear down, fuck Green Bay, and we'll talk to you again very, very